Hello everyone, this is a bit of a different video this time. Instead of doing like a standard deck profile, we are going to just talk about how Ryu-Ge places in this metagame. I said I was going to a regional, and let me tell you, wow, it did not go well. I went 0-2 immediately and then dropped because there was no world I was ever going to get a good record after that. I guess I could have stayed in, but to be honest, man, the format is not fun right now. Holy. Just so much that Ryu-Ge loses to, and I don't think my list was very good, which is why I'm not even bothering doing a deck profile for it. So instead, I'm just talking about how I think Ryu-Ge places in this metagame and why I probably can't play the deck competitively anymore. So the first thing I want to talk about is Ryu-Ge's own issues and like the biggest issues with this deck in general and why it is flawed. The first would be its starter to non-starter ratio. Ryu-Ge as a deck, without playing other stuff that will require you to play more garnets, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 starter cards. And these 9 are good. They're really good. These are really good, strong cards to open. That is all this deck has in terms of starters. So you're going to have less starters than most decks if you play this deck pure. And that's on 40 cards. And why would you want to not play 40? Well, it's because there's now about not double, but there's a lot of cards now that you don't want to draw. Let's get into every card in this deck that you don't want to draw. We've got Ryu-Ge End, a card that I haven't even been maining because I don't think you can play more cards that you don't want to draw. Ryu-Ge Warzone, a card that if you don't play more 2 more garnets, you don't want to draw. Dino Domains, a card that you don't want to draw. 2 Hakfa, a card that you don't want to draw. 2 Emva, a card that you don't want to draw. 1 Rivalry, a card you don't want to draw. The other 2 Realms, cards you don't want to draw. I see people cut this, but that still leaves you with a ton of cards you don't want to draw, and that makes Emva an even worse card, because Emva is probably the best one to draw out of any of these. 2 Anva, which, man, it is disappointing that you don't want to draw this card. I thought this card would be a lot better, but if you don't open specifically Mistva or Rising, or Warzone if you have it as a starter, this card isn't very good, because it's kind of just rotting in your hand. If you're able to get to Mistva from any of your combo lines, you probably don't need this guy at that point. So he becomes very unnecessary. He is still, and you do still have to play him at 2, because you need him for your Warzone and your Rivalry, but it just feels incredibly bad because he's another card you don't want to draw. And then 1 Kaiba. So this is, count it up, 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 13. 13 cards you don't want to draw. Mind you, we have 9 starters. There is more cards by quite a bit that you don't want to draw than starters in this deck. It is infuriating deck design. I was really hoping we'd get like some new main deck monsters to flesh this deck out. Not flesh it out, but like fix this issue, so maybe you only had to play 1 of each of these guys. That would be so much better. But no, you are dealing with having to play multiple of these guys forever, because I'm pretty sure they are done giving the crossover breakers archetypes new support, so that's fun. That means this deck is kind of where it's at for the foreseeable future, unless they decide to give this deck more support in the future, which who knows when that'll be. I think Nouvelle and Vanquish Soul just got their new support, and those came out like 2-3 years ago, so not looking close. This is just where the deck's at. And this wouldn't be that bad because I have found ways to get around this, which is, playing 60 cards, even though you'll still tend to open bad cards. Playing 60 at least makes it to where you can play more starters than you do cards you don't want to draw. Now, the other issue is that the best deck in the format is Mitsurugi Raziel. And let me tell you, Mitsurugi Raziel is this deck's greatest counter. I could not fathom a better counter for this deck. So the first, when you go second into Ryu Mitsurugi, you just lose to Detonator. You cannot beat this card. You have to open it out to Detonator, and even if you do, you are not guaranteed a win because they're going to still have prayers to summon Ame. They're going to have Cross Negate. They're going to have probably another rank 4 that does something. So you're still going to have to deal with like 3 to 4 interruptions. If they have the normal trap in their deck, the one that Omni negates, that's disastrous. That card's insane. You're going to have to deal with like 3 to 4 interruptions and hand traps with the deck that is going to open like a 4-card hand every game. That's horrible. That's so rough. The other problem is that when you go first into Mitsurugi Raizel, you are not putting up a board consistently that can beat Ritual Summon Ame. Simply because Ame doesn't... Ame can always be chain blocked. So this deck can never negate Ame. Because Varudris and Dino Domains both negate in response to a card. So if they go chain 1 Ame, chain 2 whatever they use to ritual this, you just can't respond to it and your board gets nuked and you can't do anything about it. Even if you have Rivalry set, the best it's doing is popping a monster or popping a card and then summoning Mistva and then hoping you have 2 cards to pop. And even if you do, that's probably not enough to get you there. It's definitely better than when you go first or when you go second into the deck, but it's still really bad. Like, you still have a really rough matchup into that. And you could just say, okay, well, why don't you just negate Ritual? Well, the problem is, they can, one, just Ritual using the second effect after you negate the first Ritual effect. And second, they can just go X send Aggregator, negate Varudris, or they can go Imperm, negate Varudris, or any variety of things. Put 2 4s on board, force Varudris with like Exiton or something. There's a myriad of ways to just force out the Exiton so that, okay, now I can start doing Mitsurugi things and completely demolish his board. It's just not winnable. It's really just not a matchup I think is ever conceivably winnable unless your opponent plays very badly or you just get unbelievably lucky. If you can like do a full melodious Ryu-Ge combo, that's really strong. If you can do like a full, I don't know, Blue Eyes Ryu-Ge combo, that might be enough. If you can do... There's some like hybrid builds that can put up really scary boards. The Tenpai build, the 1-card Pytra combo is really strong. But realistically, you're probably going to be ending on full Mistva combo because your opponent will have hand traps. And then you probably can't deal with the cards they have in hand because their engine is just better than yours. Like, that's what it really just comes down to. Every engine right now is better than Ryu-Ge's. Even though, to be honest, I really think this deck could go the mile if this deck was not the best deck in the game right now. And it's why I don't think I can play this deck competitively, because it's just such an unwinnable matchup. There are other decks I know that also have just as bad of matchups just because of Detonator, but at least they aren't always losing to Ame, right? Like, it's just disastrous. The other issue... So, yeah, that's the issues with the deck. There is one other issue, and it's a pretty big one. Right now, the format is built around turn enders, cards like Droll, cards like the Molcharmies, Lancia, and Ryu-Ge loses to Droll, like, unbelievably hard. It has almost no counterplay. And it loses to Lancia really hard, which it has some counterplay into, but if your only playmaker is Mistva, and you go scale Mistva, get Warzone, activate Warzone, they chain Lancia, you have no counterplay. Like, that is just the end. So this deck loses to 2 of the most played cards in the format. Lancia is probably the most side decked card in the game right now, and Droll is one of the most main deck cards in the game right now. You're just never going to be able to play, realistically. Everyone else is on 40 cards, so they're going to see their turn enders more than you will as well. So you're at a disadvantage in terms of seeing those turn enders, and you lose to those turn enders. I could not imagine a worse metagame for Ryu-Ge to have to exist in. It's just miserable. I really don't know. So just for context, the build I tried to play at the regional was Ryu-Ge Melodious Stun, which used like Inspector Border and a Mono Wado to try to get around some of these issues by like normal summon a Mono Wado is pretty good into a Mitsurugi Ryu board. However, that deck was just not consistent enough. It had too many issues, way too many. It lost to itself more than anything else, and also it didn't really help against the turn enders. It didn't really do enough into Droll. It didn't really do enough into just Lancia, any of the cards, and their decks were always just better. Their decks were always just better than mine. I didn't even lose just to Mitsurugi Raizo. I also lost to Blue Eyes, which was kind of demoralizing. That deck should be a really good matchup for this deck, and we just got completely washed. It's just rough stuff. I think I'm going to have to start moving on to other decks. Not even necessarily more competitively viable decks, but I also just want to break from Ryu-Ge. I have been playing it since it came out, so I would like some kind of thing to mix up my gameplay, because I am getting burnout with the game if I keep playing the same deck over and over and over again, especially when it's not remotely competitively viable. So I'd like your guys' opinions in the comments. What should I play? What should I do? I wouldn't mind doing a little series where I do like a deck profile and go over rogue decks. I pretty much exclusively play rogue. I have played meta quote unquote meta decks before. I've played like Melodious when that deck was at its peak, and I played Crystron last format a little bit, but that's like the closest. I've never actually played like the best deck in the format ever. So I'm just curious what kind of road decks you guys would like to see. I love pendulum decks. I am like the pendulum guy at my locals. There's a reason I like Ryu-Ge so much. My other favorite decks are like Abyss Actor and Supreme King Melodious. So I would love to get recommended a pendulum deck, even though they're going to be just as bad into the format, but at least it's a mixed change of pace. Or if you guys want to see more competitive decks, I can do more competitive content and just make videos on competitive decks. I'm able to get access to those decks. I know people who I can borrow those decks from and just have a time. So I don't know. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. I'm really sad to have have to make this kind of video where it's just, hey, the deck I kind of built my channel around so far is so bad I don't think I can do it anymore. It really just is what it is, but I really can't. I'm going to get so burnt out immediately if I keep doing these. Because my locals is competitive enough, I'm not going to be able to like keep doing well if I keep playing this deck in this format. So anyway, again, want to hear what you guys have to say. Really looking forward to what we might do in the future. If I don't get any recommendations, I might play Pure Melodious because I saw that deck doing really well, and I do want to see how that does in the modern game, because in theory it should be really good. Or I don't know, I might play something silly. I might play like Valmonica or let me think. Argo Star I was looking at potentially just to see what I can make happen with that deck. But anyway, I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully with a much brighter set of circumstances and not having to make a sad video where I say my deck is bad. Yep. See y'all next time.